Get the beard all figured out.
Oh, this is
Hold on,
my
wait.
beard care. This is my beard care ritual.
Yeah. All right. Well, all right, man. What's the stuff? What's happening?
What is the stuff? What is the stuff? I feel like you had a huge breakthrough. I saw your
Oh
latest
yeah.
cut,
Thank you.
and I'd love to talk about how that breakthrough, like, how did that happen? Like, how is it
Slog,
that?
right. So the breakthrough of finally getting the beginning of a video edit that I'm happy with. Let me make sure. Yes, now I've got the sound coming through here. I'm chastened ever since that one episode where I was recording across the room.
Appropriately chastened.
Chastened. Yeah. I mean, it was a slog. I think I don't know if this isn't what you asked, but I think one interesting thing is I was like, I got a breakthrough, and I sent it off to you and Anna, and you guys both reacted positively, and then I was like, ugh. And then I crashed because somehow I didn't realize it till I sent it to you. I think I was hoping it was like I got the magic, orb across the finish line, and I pass it to you, and you guys are like, great, and pass it back to me, and then I'm like, still my, still
My problem.
my burden, yeah. So
Well, can we talk just a little bit about the breakthrough moment? Like,
yes,
how did that happen? So you're slogging through,
yeah.
and what does it break? What does that feel like, or maybe specifically, what was it, or and how did it come
Well,
about?
it doesn't feel like a big breakthrough, like you break through the paper and you're in the promised land. It was like it's a very slow slog, and it was shaping little bits of the episode, and it not quite feeling right, or having some good elements, but it still doesn't hold together. And then sort of being able to a little bit at some point see through the trees, and you pull a branch aside, and you see maybe kind of a little bit of what might be a horizon, and then you sort of like, okay, that might be the direction, and then just doing a super deep dive. So now we were in the jungle, now we're in a ocean, a super deep dive
Deep
in
dive into the jungle.
cloudy water, and then you finally come up, and then you're like, did it work? And then playing it, and then I was like, I think it works, but it wasn't until I sent it to you guys, and you were like, it's great.
Well, and just to maybe context a little bit, that the difficulty, right, is that you get all this footage, you get hours of footage, and you're trying to turn it into a show, and it's like, how do you do that? I mean, there are people who make movies and stuff by doing all this pre-thinking and coming up with an outline and coming up with a script and all that stuff. And I think there's a different way of doing things, which is just collecting a bunch of stuff and saying, I know there's something cool in here, and then looking for it, and then
Yeah.
trying to find a concise flow so that it communicates the cool stuff that's there. And yeah, it's like, what a challenge. That's the whole. I mean, is
Well,
that the whole challenge? Sort of, is that sort of like finding the story in all the footage?
kind of. I think it's just like we've talked about in other contexts. The figuring it out is the hard part, and once you figure it out, once you have an arc and a sense of it, it becomes almost obvious. Where you're like, oh yeah,
Yeah,
well of course that's what the show
there's the
is.
door. Yeah.
Yeah, there's the door, right? And so that's very much what this is. And so even now, once it sort of feels like, breakthrough, this is the shape of the episode, it still feels like I look back and I'm like, I kind of knew what that was going to be. I had elements of that already. That's kind of what the kinds of things I was half-heartedly saying to the camera person, and
Yeah.
this and that. But somehow I wasn't sure of it, and it didn't all hold together. But now that I have it, you're kind of like, I could do more episodes like this,
Yeah.
and this is the structure.
Well, that's great.
And now you could point to it and be like, this is the structure. So this is the
how
kind
it
of
works.
footage we should get, and this is the shape of it. And it's just so hard to see from the other side, or maybe just to have faith in those little
Yeah.
instinctual pieces.
Well, I feel like it's really analogous to the position that we and so many people are in as creative people that haven't quite broken through to understanding exactly what their thing is. I think that's speaking for myself, and
Yeah.
I feel like that's similar for you. We've got all these different interests, all these different toys we want to play with, and kind of vague ideas of like, yeah, cameras and music and people and different subject matter, and you sort of start a bunch of things. And I'm sure that God willing, both of us find out what our, how to focus all this energy into a cohesive path that we'll look back and we'll be like, obviously we were doing that the whole
Right.
time,
Yeah.
but we can't see it now.
Yeah.
I can't. I'm sort of flailing around and trying, and it's really hopeful to think that there is a point where you can slog through and I feel like that is the most interesting thing that always seems to me missing from all these artistic biopics, or do they pronounce it
The behind it.
biopics?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, but specifically the moment when they're like, oh, this is what I am.
I see.
Now I can do that repetitively,
Right.
and
Yeah.
and make my way in the world.
It always seems like such a gift when someone is like, I know I want to do this, like I'm going to be an architect and I love architecture and I just love it and I want to do architecture. It's just like, what a gift that must be.
But even they must have some sort of like architect of what type? They must have some sort of like, I want to be an architect, but not, I want to be half Frank Lloyd Wright but with a little bit of this because I think that the missing piece, you got to have an angle on whatever it is. And that's the hard part, I think, figuring out your unique angle.
Yeah. Well, you're making it sort of sound like I've figured it out, which I certainly don't feel like right now. Like, oh, well, it was hard getting to where I am now. Thank you.
I've made it. I do think that when I think of the concept of making it, that is what I think of is making it. And
knowing who I am.
Knowing what the heck am I doing? Yeah. What am I trying to do here? And yes, maybe you haven't completely done it, but I feel like this is a step.
Yeah. There's something that feels a little silly too, because the specific breakthrough we're talking about is this edit of this show that puts me more at the center. And I don't know if that's the way you would describe it, but that's kind of how I would describe it. And that's part of why it was so hard for me to see it and grasp it and say it with confidence and whatever. And despite the fact that other people, you and Anna and others, are going, you should be at the center. You should be at the center. This would be better if you're at the center. And it's just like, I couldn't, I just had to sort of like, I couldn't grasp it. And I even feel silly now saying it, which is like now the breakthrough is that I'm at the center of the show. But it is, and you were giving good examples of what that looks like. But that makes it so much harder. And I think that's the case in a lot of art and music and everything. It's just like the deal is what I'm at the center of, it's just like putting yourself there, having the audacity or the nerve to say, this show's about me.
But, it doesn't feel like it's about you. When you say that the breakthrough it's about you and that we've been saying for years you should be at the center, I think...
Not for years, but for this, specifically
for a chunk of time.
Yeah.
But... it's not so much to me.
We weren't saying that.
No.
You shouldn't be at the center.
It's not that you shouldn't be at the center, but it just doesn't feel like that, because even when you say that, it sounds like something that is not what we're seeing. It's more because this first one does feel about Jeremiah, but it's coming from your what's interesting about it and what makes a show cohesive is that it is letting people come through
a point of view, a perspective
through your eyes, which of course, if you're going to be the creative director, you do have to sort of just be like, this is how I see it. Right. And how you see it is really cool. And that's great. And I think it's fine to say it's you are at the center.
I didn't mean it like that. Now you're making me feel bad for how I articulated it. I didn't mean that but it is like, this is from my perspective. Like, it's the story of my visit with somebody and it's about them. It's about them, but it's the story of my visit. And that's what wasn't like, I sort of assumed that would happen. And then the first cut that editor did was sort of like a documentary about the artist. And it wasn't until you see that you're like, oh, that's not quite interesting, or that's not quite it. It's interesting in itself, but it's a different kind of show. Right.
Yeah, no, I didn't mean to criticize. I was feeling like letting you off the hook because it sounds, because it really does feel I feel like, they say good art is like a mirror that's very clean, that what you're looking at is, it's not polluted by BS. And so when an Anthony Bourdain puts on a show, yes, it's Anthony Bourdain, but you don't feel like it's just like, I want to know more about Anthony Bourdain.
Right,
It's
right.
more like, what is Anthony Bourdain thinking about? And it's almost like you're putting on the Anthony Bourdain glasses. You're seeing the world through Anthony Bourdain's eyes, and that's very cool because he brings a very clean perspective on things. And I think that you do that too. But if you remove that perspective, it's much less. It's just not as interesting. So
Yeah, the Anthony Bourdain is a good comparison, because you could imagine an episode that was just the chef cooking and saying things and whatever, and it would be just a lot more flat. It'd be like an art piece or a documentary piece about cooking in Thailand or whatever the subject is. So yeah, that's a good one. Anyway, too much about me and my ins and outs. What's your latest permutation of
Well, I've been working on a grand vision, and the problem is, the difficulty is that it's so grand. It's like, it's very hard to share, because it really would I mean, to anybody. I mean, even if we had
So is this
hours.
a grand vision that just popped out of nowhere? Is this a new inspiration? It's not like the
Well,
latest.
it's been cooking up for a long time, and basically it started by, I was reading Abraham Maslow, and everybody thinks of Abraham Maslow being about this hierarchy of needs. That's his hit. That's his big hit, is the
hit
hierarchy
single.
of needs.
Right.
But
That was his chart topper.
Yeah, as a chart topper. But if you go to the deep cuts, if you actually read a book of his cover to cover, I became obsessed with this book.
Read a book.
Who reads Abraham Maslow books? I know, but I just started, and I got hooked. I not only read it, but then I read it again, and then I read it again and again, and I keep reading it because it's so thick and juicy and awesome, and what he's actually talking about. So I started drawing pictures of what he was talking about, because I feel like his own hit single, the hierarchy of needs, was actually misdrawn to represent what he was trying to say, that it should be drawn in a different way. And so I drew it the way I thought that what he was saying would represent it better. And then that led to all of these other things, and so then I started drawing madly on whiteboards, like, because I had all this that I wanted to talk about, so I wanted to share it with somebody. So I said, this doesn't make sense without pictures. So I started drawing a bunch of pictures, and so then there's this revision of his pyramid, which is no longer a pyramid, it's this X. And I started drawing trees and things that indicate certain things that I've been thinking about, diversity of talent and interests and stuff like that. And it's just kept going and kept going and kept going, and now it's completely unwieldy, but I'm still super jazzed about it. It's definitely the thing that I'm spending all of my free brain cycles sort of going back to the whiteboard and saying, oh, this is this. Oh,
how long
has
that been going for?
I mean, it's been sort of cooking in the background probably for over a year.
Oh, wow.
But
okay.
Like really in the last 2 months is when I sort of went into the deep end.
Oh, interesting. So, but lately, in those 2 months, you've been talking about this musical project or the gathering with these people and whatnot. So is it taking those same cycles? Like now, instead of playing music or gathering, you're mad scientisting in front of your whiteboard?
I had COVID, so it's been very little music. I can't get together with people to make music, so that was part of it. But I did part of what lit the fire was that after I drew these pictures, I had a friend over, and I just said, could we just tape record this conversation where like we talk about this, and then that threw gasoline on the fire. So we did that a second time, and then then I got COVID. So then,
you don't mean tape record?
Well, it was with my phone.
Oh, okay.
But it was a high quality audio recording.
Yes. Yeah.
And
I thought that was going to be super retro to actually get a tape.
What this whole thing.
Tape
but the big question about all this is like, what right do I have to try to put a revision on Abraham Maslow? And this is the big question. It's just like, on one hand, I'm turned on by these ideas, and I'm really excited by the implications of everything, and it seems really significant and important to me. And then the question comes, yeah, but why would anybody listen to me? Or like, who gets to write books about things?
Right.
Like, sometimes you'd have to have a PhD in whatever, but a lot of people who write don't have that.
Why not you, right?
Really,
why not
well,
you? There was there's this quarterback, Russell
yeah,
Wilson. You aware of Seattle Seahawks quarterback Russell Wilson? So he's one of the great quarterbacks in the NFL, and he is short. And so there was no way he was going to become a great quarterback in the NFL. And I think his dad had a mantra that was, why not you? Someone's going to do it. Why not you? Someone's going to be the first 5'6" star quarterback in the NFL. Someone's going to be the first whatever. And so Russell Wilson, that's kind of become his thing. He has the Why Not You Foundation, or Why Not Me.
Oh, yeah.
I can't remember whether it's Why Not You or Why Not Me. But I just love that. It's so much more empowering than Why Me, you know?
It's like, just keep going. Just keep doing it.
Why not you? Someone's going to do it.
But there is a question of like, what do I, how I have this idea. I would love to share it. I get really excited about it. But then what's the format to share something like this? I sort of almost want to, when I pull it all together, I kind of want to have a show where I'm like,
right.
Okay, look at this. And it's like this. Yeah. And don't you know how this
People
happens?
turn cameras on themselves and whatever. Why
People
not?
Do
I mean, that is the sort of meritocracy of this sort of like selfie internet age, where you just, vlogging or whatever, where you just turn cameras on yourself like this and start talking about stuff. This. And why not? But here's what I'm curious about is, is it the same space as music and other things? It's like you have creative time now. Is it spent, mad scientisting over your whiteboard, or is it like, well, that's that part of the portfolio, but then I'm also playing music over here? Or it's like, no, that's where creative energy is going right now, into reinterpreting Maslow.
Well, I did wake up. I had a dream right before I woke up where I was singing this song that was so great. It was a cover of a song, but it wasn't actually a real song. And I woke up and being like, man, that was a great song.
Did you capture it?
And I was like, wait a minute, that's not a real song. And so I reached over across the bed and I grabbed a guitar and I captured it. And so I've been spending the morning
with flailing limbs.
Well, because you got to get the sheets off you, and then you got to get the guitar.
Hold on.
And then pull it over. Yeah, it's just sort of like, what the heck is it? Okay. It's just and the kind of thing, when you hear something like that in your brain, it's hard to imagine that it's not just already a song. And so it could be.
I had one of those, and I every once in a while have them, and I do the work to capture them into my phone, and then I let it go forever. So I don't know if it's that much better.
I think it's a little better. I've several times been flipping through my phone notes, and in fact, this song actually, I kept working on it. So I had to go to the store to get some COVID tests, and as I was going, I still had the song in my head, and I was just like, I was finding little combinations of words, and so it stayed in my head most of the morning, and then I came back to the keyboard and I started working things out. So the fact that I worked on it, I probably worked on that this morning for a couple hours. So that helps it maybe have a chance of.
I think I heard someone, I don't know if it was Paul McCartney or someone, talking about how they would often get song inspirations in their sleep, and they'd wake up and realize that was a great song and capture it. And it occurred to me, just sort of a hypothesis, that maybe that's one of the differences between a Paul McCartney and the rest of us. I don't think that's the only difference. He also, had whatever magic he had. But probably there's other people who have like great song ideas and they flutter in, flutter out, or maybe they even capture them. But then, anyway, it sort of legitimized the idea to me of like, inspiration can come to you literally in a dream for a song. That seems amazing, for a song. And then your job is just to capture it and make it.
Well, it reminds me of the story about Michael Jackson, where he woke up in the middle of the night, 3 a.m. And he called his engineer. He's like, "Meet me in the studio now." And the guy's like, "Can we do it at 9 a.m. maybe? Do we have to do it at 3 a.m.?" And he's just like, "No, if we don't grab this, Quincy Jones is gonna grab it." because he had this feeling, and I believe this is true, that ideas are floating around in there, and if you catch it, you can grab it, but if you don't catch it, somebody else will catch it.
Yeah.
Which is part of my crazedness about this whole Maslow thing is that I feel like somebody's going to come to these conclusions.
That's an even better
claim my spot.
And that's an even better version of why not you, right? Who am I to do this? Well, that guy's going to do it. Okay, then I'm going to do it. It's like
I got to do it first. I want to just
Yeah. All right, good, man. I think we solved it.
All right.
Well done.
And recording.
Broadcast.